After 10 years of black ops in Afghanistan's cave systems, I was discharged into a rainy London street, jobless, restless, and watched. That's when the two Americans appeared. Part I, the edge of silence. The first sound was not the wind. It was a pulse, low, rhythmic, almost human, coming from beneath 12,000 years of frozen darkness. At first, the scientists thought the sensors had malfunctioned. The Antarctic plateau was alive with strange interference. Magnetic storms, seismic echoes, the groans of a living glacier, but this wasn't any of that. The pattern was too precise, too deliberate. It sounded like a heartbeat, slow, deliberate, and impossibly deep. 3 hours later, the signal stopped. 2 weeks later, a man in Edinburgh received a call that would change his life, and possibly end it. Ethan Cole didn't look like a man waiting for destiny. He looked like every other ex-Marine trying to outdrink memory. His flat was cold, the radiator dead, the air heavy with the smell of whiskey and rain. The television flickered without sound. For the first time in 10 years, there was no mission to wake up for, no uniform to put on, no target to track. Then came the knock. It wasn't the sharp rap of a neighbor. It was deliberate, measured. He opened the door to find a man in a dark overcoat, his face pale against the Scottish drizzle. "Captain Cole?" "Not anymore," Ethan replied. The stranger smiled faintly and handed him a sealed folder. "Then consider this a second enlistment. Joint Task Directive. The world's about to find something it's not ready to find." 1. Inside the folder was a single photograph, a thermal image showing a massive circular formation deep under the Ross ice shelf. In the center, a red pulse, like a living thing. Ethan laughed softly. "You're joking." "Not even close." Pack for extreme cold and long silence. Transport leaves in 8 hours, and just like that, the void in his life filled again. Cut to sound. Helicopter blades. Wind howling over ice. The flight south took them across oceans of cloud and into endless white. Ethan wasn't alone. Across from him sat Dr. Isla Marin, a Norwegian glaciologist with eyes as cold and clear as the ice she studied. She didn't speak much, only watched the horizon like someone staring into a secret. Their escort, Marcus Hale, wore the unshakable calm of a man who belonged to too many governments to name. "You were chosen for your experience in subterranean operations," he said, voice raised above the rotors. "What you'll see in the next few days will challenge everything you thought was possible." "Is that a promise or a warning?" Ethan asked. "Both." They landed on the Antarctic coast under a sun that never set, its light thin and sterile. The base was called Station Solace, though it felt anything but. Rows of prefabricated modules crouched against the wind, half buried in drifts. The air tasted of metal and fear. Inside the command module, Isla stood before a digital map, showing the ice shelf's underbelly, a maze of tunnels and voids carved by geothermal heat. In one of those voids glowed a perfect circle, 600 meters wide. "That's where the signal originated," she said. "But the ice above it is too thick for ordinary drills. Then we use something extraordinary," Hale replied. He opened a case revealing a prototype thermal boring capsule technology not yet cleared for civilian research. Its metal surface shimmered faintly, as if already radiating heat. Ethan ran a hand along its side. "Looks like a coffin." Hale's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's hope it doesn't become one." Days passed in a blur of preparation. Outside, the world was nothing but wind and white. Inside, the crew's nerves frayed. Equipment malfunctioned for no reason. Cameras picked up static shapes that vanished on playback. On the third night, Ethan woke to a faint humming beneath the floor, the same rhythm as the signal. He followed it to the drilling platform, where Isla stood alone, staring down through the open shaft. "You hear it too," he said. She nodded without looking at him. "It's not random. It's counting." "Counting what?" "Time," she whispered. "Or us." At dawn, they began the descent. The thermal capsule slid into the borehole like a silver bullet, melting its path through blue ice older than civilization. Inside the capsule, Ethan, Isla, Commander Alonso, Reyes, and Dr. Victor Stein, the physicist who insisted that myths of lost continents were embryos of memory. The capsule shuddered as they passed 400 meters, then 600. The walls glowed faintly, streaked with minerals that pulsed like veins. Reyes watched the monitors, temperature rising, pressure stable. Then the hum returned louder, resonating through the hull. Stein adjusted his instruments. "It's responding to us. The frequency is synchronizing with our power source." "That's impossible," Isla said. Ethan felt it too, not through his ears, but through his bones. A vibration that seemed to whisper beneath thought itself. The capsule broke through into open air with a hiss of steam. They'd reached a hollow chamber nearly half a kilometer wide. The ceiling shimmered with crystal formations reflecting their lights like mirrors of frozen fire. Reyes's voice was tight. "Deploy external flood." The beam cut through the darkness and revealed something no one could name. Structures. Angular. Metallic. Perfectly preserved. A city entombed in glassy ice, its towers suspended mid-gesture like frozen breath. Isla exhaled. "It's impossible. 12,000 years at least." Stein's hands trembled. "Atlantis was real," he murmured. Ethan stepped out onto the frozen floor, his boots echoing faintly. The air was thick, humming with static. As he moved deeper between the icy spires, he felt watched. Then, something moved inside the ice. Not a trick of light, a shadow, a shape with the outline of a man tall, slender, unmoving. Behind it, another, and another. "Back to the capsule," Reyes ordered. But his voice faltered, because the figure's eyes, dark and hollow a moment before, began to glow with pale light. The hum rose to a pitch that clawed at their nerves. Instruments spiked, lights flickered, and the ice beneath their feet began to crack slowly, rhythmically, like breathing. Ethan grabbed Isla's arm. "Move!" They ran. The chamber thundered with the sound of shifting ice, but beneath it, faintly, the pulse returned deeper now, faster, as if something beneath the city was waking. Back at Station Solace, Hale listened to the transmission, expression unreadable. "They've found it," he said quietly. "Prepare containment." The radio hissed, then cut to silence, fade to black. The wind howls across endless ice. If you've been listening this far, you already know this isn't just another expedition story. What they found down there changed everything we thought we knew about human history and about ourselves. If you want to hear what happened after that signal stopped, and what came out of the ice when the world wasn't watching, make sure to subscribe and stay with us. The next part will take you deeper than you've ever imagined. When the transmission cut out, the entire operations room inside Station Solace froze. The only sound was the wind pressing against the metal walls, an endless sigh that seemed to whisper the same rhythm as that subterranean pulse. Hale didn't speak for nearly a minute. Then, in a voice stripped of warmth, he said, "Seal the external channel. We maintain radio silence until they resurface." No one answered. The technicians just stared at the blank screen that had shown the capsule's telemetry seconds earlier. Deep below, the capsule sat at the edge of the impossible city. Its power flickered, screens dimming and brightening in waves. "Comms are dead," Reyes said. His voice echoed off the metal like someone else was speaking behind him. "We'll move by tether until signal returns." They stepped out again into the blue-lit cathedral of ice. The air was thin but breathable. Isla's readings showed trace gases unlike anything she'd seen. "Look at this," she murmured. "Oxygen content is higher than expected. It's like the air was sealed here since the Younger Dryas." Ethan swept his flashlight along the walls. The towers seemed to ripple under the beam, as though their surfaces were not solid but fluid trapped in time. He caught his reflection distorted in the curve of the ice, his own face stretched and alien. Dr. Stein crouched near a fissure where light pulsed faintly from within. He pressed a sensor to it. "Electromagnetic resonance. These structures are generating current." "No. They are current. The material itself conducts energy." "Then it's not dead," Isla said. Reyes lifted his rifle instinctively. "Let's keep it that way." They followed a tunnel carved in perfect symmetry, leading to a central plaza. In the center stood a pillar of translucent crystal rising 50 feet high, its core glowing with soft white light. Around its base, frozen figures lay half embedded in ice-human shapes, too precise to be statues. Ethan counted 6 before the fog of his breath blurred his view. What are they? Isla stepped closer. Preserved. Look at the cellular integrity, skin, hair, everything intact. Her gloved hand hovered inches from the ice. They could have been frozen yesterday, Stein whispered. Or tomorrow. The hum returned slow, methodical, now unmistakably patterned. Isla's scanner pulsed in sync, displaying a waveform repeating in exact intervals. Signals back, Reyes said. But it's not ours. The light from the crystal pillar began to intensify. The frozen bodies beneath it shimmered as if the ice were melting without heat. The hum turned into a tone, rising and falling like language half-remembered. Ethan felt something brush the edge of his thoughts, a pressure, gentle but insistent, like a word trying to form inside his skull. He shook his head, blinking hard. Did you hear that? Isla asked quietly. He nodded. Not with my ears. The crystal flared, blinding white, then snapped back to darkness. When their vision cleared, fine cracks spiderwebbed across the ice around the bodies. Reyes ordered retreat, voice tight. We regroup at the capsule now. But as they turned, the path they'd entered by was gone. Solid wall, no seam, no tunnel. Only smooth, glassy ice reflecting their pale faces. For a long moment, none of them moved. Then Stein began to laugh short, breathless bursts that ended in a choke. We're inside The sound cut him off. A low rumble. Not from above or below, but from everywhere. The floor vibrated, sending fractures racing outward from the pillar. The ice under one of the frozen bodies shattered completely, releasing a rush of air that smelled of ozone and ancient dust. Ethan pulled Isla back as shards fell like knives. Through the gap, something gleamed metallic, intricate, like armor or exoskeleton. It's a containment field, Isla said. Those aren't coffins, they're chambers. Reyes tried the comm again. Static answered. Then a voice not Hale's, not any human frequency, whispering syllables that bent the air itself. Stein translated automatically, as though remembering a dream. We are not gone. The lights along the city's avenues flared one by one, stretching outward into the dark, until the entire cavern glowed like a buried sunrise. Isla clutched Ethan's arm. Something's waking up, he whispered. Maybe it never slept. They stumbled back toward the capsule, guided by the dim emergency beacons still blinking on its hull. As they reached it, power surged through the chamber again. Screens came alive, displaying streams of alien symbols scrolling too fast to read. Reyes tried to override the system. Auto-launch sequence. Engaged. By who? Ethan demanded. No one answered. The capsule doors sealed of their own accord, locking them inside. The engines roared, but instead of ascending, they dropped downward, through a section of ice that opened like a throat. Isla shouted, "We're being pulled!" Gravity reversed. The 4 of them were pressed against their seats as the capsule plunged through a tunnel illuminated by impossible light. Walls of translucent material flashed past, showing glimpses of chambers, machinery, silhouettes, moving in slow, deliberate rhythm. Then, silence. The capsule came to rest with a soft thud. Ethan forced the hatch open. Warm air drifted in humid, rich with an earthy scent that had no business existing beneath Antarctic ice. Before them stretched a corridor of stone and metal, vines of luminescent crystal running along its surface. In the distance, faint lights pulsed like beacons guiding them forward. Reyes muttered, "This isn't a cave." "No," Isla said. "It's a facility." Behind them, the tunnel they'd fallen through had sealed completely. Ethan tightened the strap on his gear. "Then the only way out is forward." They moved as a unit, their footsteps echoing off the polished floor. Somewhere ahead, a new sound began, soft, rhythmic, impossibly human. Footsteps, they weren't alone anymore. The corridor narrowed the farther they went, the walls breathing with faint pulses of light. It no longer felt like architecture. It felt like anatomy. Every few meters, a vibration rolled through the floor, subtle enough to unsettle the balance but strong enough to make Ethan's teeth ache. "Air temperature's rising," Isla said, reading her handheld sensor. 23 degrees Celsius. Reyes frowned. "Down here? That's impossible." Dr. Stein touched the wall, pulling his hand back immediately. Warm. It's self-heating. Not geothermal controlled. The corridor opened into a chamber vast enough to swallow the Capitol dome. Columns of black crystal climbed into darkness, each humming with the same low tone that had followed them since the surface. At the center stood a sphere hovering above a dais, its surface rippling like liquid glass. Ethan could see his reflection on it, then several reflections, shifting independent of his movement. Isla whispered, "It's reading us." Reyes circled the dais cautiously. "Stein, keep your hands off that thing until we know." The sphere expanded soundlessly, doubling in size. The hum shifted upward, forming a chord that felt like language rather than sound. From within the sphere, shapes began to form figures, tall and slender, made of light. They flickered as if the air couldn't decide whether to let them exist. Stein stared, eyes wide, voice shaking. "It's projection? Memory?" Then one of the shapes stepped down from the dais. Its outline solidified skin like translucent marble, eyes deep pools of reflected light. It looked almost human, but too symmetrical, too deliberate. Ethan's instinct screamed at him to raise his weapon. He didn't. Something in the creature's gaze stripped him of aggression. Like standing before a storm you couldn't possibly fight. The being spoke, but the sound was inside their minds, an echo more than a voice. "Surface-born, you are not the first." Isla's knees nearly buckled. "You understand us." The being tilted its head slightly. "We remember your kind." Stein managed, "Who are you?" A pause, then a word that vibrated through their bones. "Lara." Reyes regained his command tone. "We come in peace, scientific delegation only." The Aileron's gaze shifted to the rifle slung over his shoulder, then back to his face. Intentions are harder to hide than steel. Ethan felt something brush his thoughts again, feather light, searching. He saw flashes, not his own oceans boiling, cities crumbling, people fleeing beneath a sky split by fire. Then, nothing, he gasped, clutching his head. "What did you just do?" he demanded. "Remembering through you," the Aileron answered, "to see if the surface still dreams of conquest." Isla stepped forward. "We came because we heard your signal. We thought it was a natural anomaly." The being's eyes dimmed slightly, almost sad. "A call to warn, not to welcome." The sphere behind them began to flicker again. More figures appeared, their outlines less distinct but their presence heavier, pressing against the air. Reyes whispered, "We need to get out. Now." The Aileron's voice cut through the rising hum. "There is no out yet. You open the passage. The ice will not hold again until choice is made." Stein's instruments went wild, energy levels spiking far beyond measurable limits. "They're generating electromagnetic output like a reactor." The Aileron turned to him. "It is not energy. It is memory." Suddenly, the chamber darkened. From somewhere above came a mechanical groan, the sound of stone shifting after thousands of years. The light returned in violent pulses, illuminating murals carved into the surrounding columns. Images of human-like figures descending beneath mountains while flames consumed the surface above. Isla traced one mural with her beam. 12,000 years ago, the Younger Dryas impact, Ethan added quietly. They escaped below, while everything froze. Reyes raised his radio again. "Station Solace, come in," Static answered. Then a voice, Marcus Hales, distorted. "Captain Cole. Do not engage further. Seal whatever entry you've..." The transmission warped into a scream of interference. The Aileron flinched as if struck. They are listening. Always listening. Ethan's headset sparked, searing his ear. He ripped it off. "They can hear us up there?" The being nodded. "They always could. Your governments watch the deep places, but they do not understand them." Behind them, the sphere collapsed inward, shrinking into a dense point of light that darted across the room and vanished through a side passage. Without thinking, Ethan followed, the others calling after him. The passage twisted, narrowing until it opened into another chamber smaller, but alive with motion. Machinery hummed beneath transparent floors. Liquid light pulsed through veins in the walls. At the center stood a pod, half open, releasing faint vapor. Inside lay something human, or once human. Skin gray-white, eyes closed, veins faintly luminous. Isla caught up and froze. Is that alive? Before anyone could answer, the eyes opened. Pale blue, ancient. A hand lifted, trembling, reaching toward the light. Reyes raised his weapon, but Ethan blocked him. The being whispered, voice barely audible. We kept watch. You forgot. The words sent a chill deeper than cold. Then the figure's body convulsed, dissolving into mist that rushed upward through vents in the ceiling, leaving only the echo of its last breath. Lights across the complex flared. Siren-like tones filled the air. The aileron from the main chamber appeared at the doorway, now more solid than before. You woke the memory vault, it said. Now everything remembers. Reyes turned to Ethan, desperation cutting through the soldier's calm. We need extraction. Now. But the walls themselves began to move, sections sliding, sealing corridors, redirecting them like veins closing around foreign cells. Isla whispered. It's protecting itself. The aileron corrected her softly. No. It's deciding. The walls were moving like living stone, closing corridors, opening others. The team ran without speaking, boots hammering against glassy floors that vibrated beneath their weight. Every turn looked the same. Smooth black crystal. Veins of light pulsing in time with that endless heartbeat. Ethan shouted over the rising hum. Reyes, which way? There is no way, Reyes barked. The map's rewriting itself. Dr. Stein stumbled, clutching his tablet as it flickered. On the screen, new symbols appeared, lines, curves, repeating fractal patterns. It's not random, he gasped. It's communication. Then tell it we come in peace, Isla said, breath ragged. Behind them, a door sealed with a hiss, cutting off the corridor they'd entered. The air smelled faintly of ozone and iron. Their headlamps flickered, and for a heartbeat, the light showed something standing at the far end of the hall, tall, motionless, like a human silhouette carved from shadow. Ethan, Isla whispered. Don't look back. He didn't. He just ran. They burst into a chamber shaped like a cathedral's heart-vaulted ceiling, walls of crystal that glowed from within. In the center rose the same pillar they'd seen before, now burning with internal fire. The Aileron stood before it, radiant and terrible. You should not have come so deep, it said. We were not meant to wake in this age. Reyes raised his rifle. We didn't choose this. The being turned its eyes on him. The weapon's barrel sagged as if softened by invisible heat. Choice is what defines you, surface-born. Even here, the pillar flared again. Images filled the air, cities under clear water, mountains splitting, skies raining fire. Humanity's own history overlaid with something older, greater. Isla's voice trembled. Is this the future? Is this the future? The Aileron shook its head. Your past. Repeating. A low groan rolled through the structure. Cracks spider-webbed across the floor, and through them Ethan glimpsed light orange, molten, rising fast. The ice is collapsing, he shouted. The Aileron's form wavered. The city will seal itself. You must ascend, or be buried with memory. Show us the way out, Ethan demanded. The being extended a hand, and part of the wall folded away, revealing a vertical shaft lit by climbing lights. Follow the path until the light ends. Do not stop. Do not look into the glass. They didn't ask what that meant. They just ran. Upward they climbed through the trembling corridor, the walls pulsing faster now, echoing their racing hearts. Every few seconds, the glass beside them cleared just enough to show movement beyond ghostly figures pacing in parallel, as if shadows of the team running a fraction out of sync. Isla glanced once and nearly slipped. Eyes forward. Ethan barked. Ignore it. A sudden blast of air hit them from above, warm, smelling of dust and ash. They were close. The hum reached a fever pitch, transforming into a tone that felt like pressure inside their skulls. Then, without warning, the floor gave way. Ethan hit the ground hard, pain shooting up his shoulder. Light swirled around him. He'd landed back in the first chamber, the one with the crystal pillar. except now it was empty. The others were gone. The pillar dark. Silence. He staggered to his feet, calling out. No answer. Only his own, breathing, and the faint crackle of static in his helmet. Then, a voice not Hale, not human, slid through the channel. Surface-born. Remember what you saw. The ground shuddered violently. Ethan bolted toward the nearest tunnel, light from his helmet barely cutting the dark. Ice cascaded around him, roaring like thunder. He climbed, crawled, half fell until suddenly there was open air above him, cold and merciless. He pulled himself out onto the surface as the last of the tunnel collapsed behind him in a geyser of steam and shattered light. For a long time he just lay there, gasping, watching auroras tear across the Antarctic sky. His radio crackled once more. Hale's voice this time, calm and practiced. Captain Cole. Report. Ethan pressed the transmit switch, staring into the endless white. The signal wasn't geological, he said quietly. It was a warning. Copy that, Hale replied. Stay where you are. Extraction inbound. Then static. He rolled onto his back, eyes following the shimmering curtain of green light above. Beneath him, deep below the ice, something answered in rhythm, one final pulse, faint but deliberate, like a heartbeat sinking back into sleep. Fade out. The wind takes over, endless, indifferent. If you felt that chill in your bones, if you want to know what they brought back from that cavern and why the world never heard about it, make sure you're subscribed. The next chapter will take you even deeper, to what waits beneath the ice when humanity knocks twice. Part 2. The Descent. When they found Ethan Cole, he was half frozen at the edge of the Ross ice shelf, clutching his radio like a lifeline and whispering coordinates that didn't exist on any map. 2 helicopters brought him back to Station Solace, though Station no longer described what it had become. Satellite trucks, military tents, security drones, the quiet science post had turned into a classified fortress overnight. He remembered flashes, the pillar of light, the voice in his head, Isla's screams swallowed by collapsing ice. After that blackness, when he woke in the infirmary, his left ear still rang with that inhuman hum. Major Marcus Hale stood beside the bed, face unreadable beneath frost-burned skin. You're lucky we tracked your beacon before the storm hit, Hale said. Where's the rest of your team? Ethan hesitated. Gone. Gone as in? The ice took them. Hale's jaw tightened. And the anomaly? Ethan met his eyes. It's alive. The room fell silent except for the wind outside. Hale finally spoke again, voice low. You need rest. You'll debrief in Santiago once you're cleared to fly. That night, Ethan dreamed of the pillar again. Only this time, it wasn't under ice. It stood above a city, absorbing the sky, and the world below it burned. He woke drenched in sweat to the smell of disinfectant and the faint clicking of the heating system. Someone was in the room. A figure stood by the window, backlit by aurora glow tall, motionless. He blinked. The figure was gone. Only frost on the glass where a handprint lingered. 3 weeks later, Santiago, Chile. The debrief facility sat outside the city limits, disguised as a meteorological institute. Inside, it felt like a bunker, narrow corridors, mirrored observation glass, the hum of servers behind every wall. They made Ethan repeat his story 12 times. Each time the questions changed slightly, as if the interrogators wanted to see when his answers would break. Describe the structures. Describe the entities. Did they communicate? What is the meaning of surface-born? After the 4th session, he stopped answering. He realized none of them cared about Isla Reyes or Stein. They only wanted coordinates. A week later, he met Dr. Lena Armitage, a cognitive science consultant from Cambridge, brought in to evaluate his psychological stability. She was calm, precise, maybe too kind to be part of the same machine that had swallowed his mission. During the first session, she said, "They've classified everything about Solace. Officially, your team perished in a glacial collapse. Your record ends there." Ethan studied her expression. "And unofficially, they think you made contact." He almost laughed. "You think?" She leaned forward. "Do you still hear them, Captain?" He didn't answer. Because he did. At night, in the air conditioning vents, The hum sometimes returned soft as a lullaby, pulsing in the exact rhythm of his heartbeat. The investigation changed tone the moment a photograph leaked. A geologist stationed 200 kilometers from Solace had captured a satellite image showing a perfect circular depression in the ice, 50 meters wide, where the team's last known coordinates had been. At its center, an object reflecting sunlight like polished metal. Within 24 hours, the photo vanished from the servers. The geologist was reassigned to a post in Madagascar. Ethan confronted Hale about it in the corridor outside the debrief room. "You knew something was still active down there," he said. Hale didn't deny it. "There's a multinational task group forming under the Chilean Defense Directorate. They're calling it Operation Hephaestus. You're going back." Ethan stared at him. "You buried the first mission, because it failed. This time, we control the narrative. Control." The word echoed like a threat. That night, Ethan met Dr. Armitage again in the facility courtyard. The city lights below shimmered in the thin mountain air. "They want you to lead the second descent," she said softly. "They think the anomaly can be weaponized or neutralized depending on who reaches it first." Ethan looked toward the Andes peaks, where clouds glowed faintly with lightning. "What do you think?" he asked. She hesitated. "I think whatever you found down there wasn't supposed to wake up." Before she left, she slipped something into his hand, a small, cold metal disc. "Keep this close," she said. "It disrupts electromagnetic fields, just in case the voices come back." When the transport plane lifted from Santiago 3 days later, the new team aboard was nothing like the scientists from Solace. These were soldiers, special operations units from 4 nations, their insignias blacked out. Their commander introduced herself simply as Colonel Yara Nakamura. She offered no small talk. "Our orders are to locate the subterranean structure, secure any surviving technology, and return with verifiable evidence. No communication with the outside world until extraction." Ethan caught her glance. It was clear she didn't believe the official line about a natural cave system. None of them did. As the plane crossed into Antarctic airspace, turbulence shook the fuselage. Lightning flickered inside the storm clouds, illuminating faces gone pale in the red emergency lights. On the cabin wall, a digital display showed their destination, Sector D-17, roughly 50 kilometers east of the original dig site. Reyes's voice haunted him. "It's not a cave, it's a facility." Ethan reached into his jacket and felt the disc Dr. Armitage had given him. For the first time in weeks, the hum in his skull fell silent. Camera sound, turbines fading, wind rising, metal creaking. They landed on a plateau where the ice seemed unnaturally smooth, as though something beneath had melted its way up and refrozen. A team of engineers deployed drills, ground-penetrating radar, and seismic sensors. Within an hour, they detected a hollow chamber, 200 meters down. Cylindrical, symmetrical, artificial. Colonel Nakamura gave the order. "Cut the ice." As the drills bit into the frozen crust, Ethan felt the hum again, faint but growing an echo vibrating through his teeth. The soldiers around him didn't seem to notice. When the drill reached the chamber, the hum stopped. For a moment, the world went perfectly quiet. Then the ice beneath their feet exhaled a gust of warm air, carrying a whisper that no one but Ethan seemed to hear. "Welcome back," was a perfect circle too perfect to have been made by the drills alone. It was as if the ice had anticipated the cut and parted willingly. Steam rose from the edges, curling upward like breath from something waking under the surface. Colonel Nakamura stared down the shaft through her thermal visor. Temperature inside reads -2, and climbing. Keep safety lines double-checked. "Cole, your point." Ethan clipped his harness to the line. The humming in his skull pulsed once, like a heartbeat acknowledging him. He steadied his breath. "Copy." Descending. They lowered into the shaft, one by one, headlamps slicing through mist and darkness. The walls shimmered faintly with a blue iridescence, the same color Ethan remembered from the aileron's eyes. His gloves brushed smooth surfaces, not raw ice, polished, engineered. At 50 meters, the comms crackled. A voice whispered through the channel, too faint to identify. It wasn't Nakamura. It wasn't anyone above. "You returned, earlier than expected." Ethan froze mid-descent. Did anyone copy that? No response, only static. He tapped his earpiece, pulse racing. Command, this is Cole. I have a transmission inside the shaft, unidentified source. Silence. Then Nakamura's voice, sharp. Repeat last, Cole. We're not receiving external audio. He swallowed hard. Nothing. Just interference. At 100 meters, the shaft widened into a cavern, identical to the one from Solace, except larger, vast, cathedral-like. Black columns rose into a darkness too high for their lights to touch. In the distance stood a metal structure half buried in ice. A gate, circular, carved with sigils glowing faintly like embers under glass. One of the soldiers murmured, Jesus. This thing's older than everything. Nakamura ordered perimeter formation. Sensors, floodlights, cameras, the air filled with the buzz of human technology, trying to measure the immeasurable. But the readings came back blank. Every instrument flatlined the moment it faced the gate. Ethan stepped closer. The hum in his head became a rhythm again, steady, insistent. The sigils on the gate pulsed in time with it. He reached out, stopping just short of the surface. Don't, Nakamura warned. Too late. The gate responded to proximity. The sigils rearranged themselves like living metal, forming a pattern that resolved into something that looked like an eye. A single vertical slit of light opened at its center. The hum became a tone, deep and resonant. Then the ice under their boots trembled. A surge of wind rushed from the gate, knocking several soldiers off balance. Cameras flickered and died. Every headlamp went out simultaneously, plunging them into absolute darkness. Ethan heard the sound again, the same whisper from his helmet speaker, now all around him. You should not have come back. The memory was not meant to live twice. He felt hands on his shoulders, gloved, human. Nakamura's voice cut through the black. Flash backup lights. Everyone regroup on Beacon 3. Light flared from emergency beacons, red and dim, revealing faces, wide-eyed with fear. But something else moved beyond their circle of light figures, half seen, walking along the perimeter of the gate. Their shapes flickered like candle flames. There and not there. Private Jensen cursed under his breath. Multiple contacts movement at 12 o'clock. Nakamura raised her rifle. Hold fire. Identify first. One of the shapes stepped forward into the red glow. It wasn't alien, it was human. Or appeared to be. A man in tattered expedition gear, frost rhyming his beard. His badge read Stein. Ethan's blood turned cold. That's impossible. The figure smiled, voice dry as static. You left us behind, Ethan. He stepped closer, eyes hollow but burning with that same inner light from the Aileran city. We saw what sleeps beneath. We belong to it now, Nakamura barked. Stay back. The figure tilted his head. You can't command what's already inside you. The red lights dimmed again, flickering like a dying heartbeat. The gate behind him blazed open, a circle of pure white light swallowing sound and shadow alike. The soldiers stumbled backward, shields raised against the glare. Ethan felt himself pulled forward, not physically, but magnetically, as if the light recognized him. The disc in his pocket vibrated violently, heating until it burned through his glove. The hum in his skull shattered into silence. Then the light vanished. The gate sealed shut. Stein was gone. The chamber lay still again, save for the echo of their own ragged breathing. Nakamura's voice cracked slightly when she spoke. We abort. Now. I don't care what command says, we're getting out of this hole. But the rope they'd descended on was no longer there. Where it should have hung, only smooth ice remained. Sealed. Trapped. Ethan stared upward, the realization sinking in. It's the same as before, he whispered. It doesn't want us to leave. Nakamura turned to him sharply. You've been here before. How do we get out? He shook his head slowly. We don't. Not until it decides we've learned what it wants us to know. The silence after Nakamura's words felt too loud. Even the team's breathing seemed unnatural, echoing against the walls like whispers. The gate, now sealed, still radiated faint warmth, as though it had recently fed. Private Jensen moved toward the rock face where the rope should have been. He pressed his gloved hand against the smooth surface and muttered, There's no seam. Nothing. It's like the ice grew back. Ethan ran his flashlight along the wall. The beam slid over a pattern he hadn't noticed before. Thin grooves. Geometric. Repeating like circuitry. It's not ice, he said quietly. It's something using the ice. Nakamura turned toward him. Explain. The Alarans they didn't build with stone or metal. They grew their architecture. The ice itself is part of the system. Dr. Liu, the mission's physicist, frowned. You're saying this cavern is alive? Ethan hesitated. Responsive. Before Nakamura could respond, the floor trembled again, subtle but steady. The gate's faint light flared once, casting long shadows across the chamber. From somewhere deep within the walls came a rhythmic clicking, mechanical yet organic, like teeth chattering behind the ice. The comms crackled. Hale's voice impossibly cut through the static. Team Hephaestus, this is command. Report status. Nakamura exhaled in relief. Finally. This is Colonel Nakamura. We're inside the primary chamber. We've encountered. The voice interrupted, distorted, overlapping with a whisper that wasn't Hale's. We are command now. The line went dead. The clicking sound rose in pitch until it became a hum, the same one Ethan had heard in his dreams. The gate's sigils rearranged themselves again, faster this time, until a symbol appeared that none of their translation programs could process a spiral that seemed to move even when you looked away. Ethan's breath fogged his visor. It's opening again. Nakamura raised her weapon, but Ethan stopped her. No. Every time we fight it, it reacts. Just watch. The spiral flared white, then projected light across the chamber's opposite wall. It wasn't random. It was an image. The Antarctic continent from above, veins of light threading beneath it like roots. The pattern pulsed outward, connecting to other points. Patagonia, the Andes, even the Pacific floor. Dr. Liu's voice trembled. There are tunnels, spanning continents. Nakamura lowered her rifle. They're everywhere. Ethan stared at the map. It's not just beneath the ice. They're under us, the entire world. The projection shifted again. A new image filled the air. Human faces, dozens of them flickering like ghosts. Reyes, Stein, Isla. Each one repeating a single phrase in a voice not their own. Memory must endure. Then the light blinked out, plunging them into darkness once more. Jensen muttered, I'm done. I don't care what it is. We climb. He started hammering pitons into the ice, ignoring Nakamura's order to stop. The metal struck something hollow beneath the surface, sending a note through the air like struck glass. The wall around the piton rippled. Jensen stepped back. What the hell? The wall opened, not shattered, not cracked, but unfolded, revealing a narrow corridor lined with faintly glowing glyphs. Warm air drifted out. Nakamura glanced at Ethan. You said it's responsive. Maybe that's an invitation. He nodded slowly. Or a test. They entered the corridor one by one. It sloped downward, the glyphs along the walls changing as they went, almost like they were reacting to their presence. Every 50 meters, Ethan felt a pressure in his chest, the air denser, the hum louder. At the end of the corridor stood a door of the same crystalline material as the gate, but translucent. Behind it, shadows moved, tall figures, indistinct. Dr. Liu whispered. Is that them? The door dissolved like mist. The figures on the other side stepped forward. They weren't the luminous entities Ethan had seen before. These were darker, solid, but still too perfect. Their skin a faint metallic sheen. One of them spoke in flawless English. Welcome to the memory vault. Ethan's throat tightened. You're Aileran? The figure tilted its head. We were. Nakamura's hand tightened on her weapon. Define were. The being's expression didn't change. Memory outlives the body. We are continuity, not flesh. Ethan stepped closer. Why bring us here? Why now? Because your kind forgot, it said. You built your world on ashes. You never understood. The air around them vibrated, and images filled the corridor. Ancient battles, humans and Ailarans side by side, against shapes too vast to see clearly. A war beneath the ice, the collapse of civilizations, and then Silence. Dr. Liu stared at the projection. They weren't gods. They were us. Or something we became, Ethan whispered. They survived what we couldn't. The being turned to him. You opened the gate. That means the surface is failing again. The pattern repeats. Nakamura spoke through gritted teeth. If you want to warn us, talk like people, not prophets. The being looked at her weapon, then back at her. We are speaking plainly. Your world is already breaking. We kept the cold below to contain what sleeps deeper still. What sleeps deeper? Ethan asked. It didn't answer. Instead, it reached out a hand and pressed it against his chest. His vision exploded with light. He saw tunnels beneath continents, vast reactors pulsing like hearts, and in the deepest chamber something vast and shifting, older than any species, moving in its sleep. He fell to his knees, gasping. The being withdrew its hand. You carry the echo now. When the surface calls again, you will remember. The corridor lights dimmed, flickering like candle flames. The ailerons began to fade, their outlines dissolving into vapor. Wait! Ethan shouted. How do we stop it? Their voices overlapped into one final whisper. You can't stop what was made to repeat. Then they were gone. Nakamura helped Ethan to his feet. What did they show you? He stared into the darkness. A warning. Or maybe a prophecy. The hum returned, louder than ever, shaking the floor. Cracks split the walls, releasing bursts of pressurized air. The chamber began to collapse. Move! Nakamura yelled. They sprinted back toward the main cavern as sections of the corridor folded inward behind them like closing jaws. The gate blazed to life again, its spiral spinning faster, pulling everything toward it. Ethan clutched the metal disc in his pocket. It pulsed once, and the pull weakened just enough for them to reach the edge of the chamber. Nakamura shouted into her radio. Base command, this is Hephaestus. One emergency extraction. Static. Then Hale's voice again, faint, distorted. Ascend. Now, Ethan turned to look at the gate one last time. Through the blinding light he saw figures moving, hundreds of them, human shapes climbing from the ice, awakened by memory. He whispered. They're not waiting anymore. The chamber convulsed around them like a wounded animal. Every surface shimmered, bending light into impossible shapes. The air smelled of ozone and snow. Ethan could feel the hum vibrating through his bones, through the very fillings in his teeth. Colonel Nakamura forced her way toward a rising column of steam that looked like an exit shaft. Cole, help me anchor the lines. Ethan jammed the thermal hook into a crack in the wall, tying the rope as the ceiling rumbled overhead. We'll never make it before this place closes again. Then we climb faster, she snapped. The first of the soldiers clipped in, scaling the shaft. A flash of white light chased them from below the gate, erupting into a vortex of energy that screamed without sound. The light twisted upward, devouring shadow as it came. Ethan grabbed Dr. Liu's harness and shoved him toward the rope. Go, Liu hesitated. What about, go? As the others climbed, Ethan looked down once more. Through the rising storm of light he saw the gate no longer as a circle, but as an eye staring straight up at him. Inside it, silhouettes moved. Reyes, Stein, Isla, reaching toward him. Their faces unreadable. He whispered, I'm sorry. Then he climbed. Meters passed like seconds. The rope burned through his gloves. Above, faint daylight shimmered through layers of ice. Nakamura was the last above him, shouting into her radio for extraction. The ground quaked. A surge of wind hit them from below, hot and wet, smelling of metal and dust. The shaft walls pulsed like veins. The hum turned into a low chant, hundreds of overlapping voices, whispering a single word he couldn't quite translate. Don't listen! Nakamura yelled. Keep climbing! Ethan's earpiece hissed. Then the voice of Dr. Armitage bled through. Impossible. She was continents away. Ethan, do you hear it again? The pattern? You can stop it this time. He froze. Lena, the disc I gave you, it's not a shield. It's a key. If you use it now, it'll close the memory circuit. Her voice faded under the roar of the wind. He looked down. The disc in his pocket glowed white-hot, trembling as if alive. The vortex below was expanding, swallowing the shaft from the bottom up. He unclipped from the line, falling a short distance before jamming his boot against the wall. "Keep climbing," he shouted to Nakamura. "I'll close it." "Cole, that's an order to go." He dropped, caught by gravity and something stranger. The vortex embraced him, dragging him toward the heart of the light. The sound became a single tone, deafening. He thrust the glowing disk into the air above the gate. The light swallowed it whole. For one blinding second, everything stopped. No sound, no movement, just silence, so complete, it hurt. Then the light collapsed inward, vanishing like a snuffed candle. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was lying on the ice. The storm had ended. The sky above was the color of mercury. Helicopters circled in the distance rescue craft, their searchlights sweeping across the snow. Colonel Nakamura knelt beside him, helmet off, frost clinging to her eyelashes. "You're alive," she said, disbelief cutting through exhaustion. "We thought the shaft buried you." Ethan tried to sit up. "The gate? Gone." She glanced over her shoulder. "There's just solid ground. No readings. Like it was never there." He nodded weakly. "That's how it hides." They lifted off an hour later. From the air, the plateau looked unbroken, perfect, untouched. But Ethan could still feel the hum beneath the rotors, a pulse under the ice, steady as a heartbeat. 2 weeks later, Santiago again. The debrief facility felt even colder than Antarctica. Hale sat across the table, flanked by 2 officials Ethan didn't recognize. Dr. Armitage was absent. Hale's expression was carved from stone. "Operation Hephaestus is concluded. The site is sealed. Official report: seismic collapse. No recoverable artifacts." Ethan leaned forward. "You knew what was down there. You sent us anyway." The official on Hale's right spoke first. "We needed confirmation. You provided it. Thank you for your service." Ethan laughed once, a sound without humor. "You have no idea what you woke up." The second official closed a folder. "Then it's good we have you, Captain. Because you're going back." Ethan froze. "Back?" Another signal. Not Antarctica this time. The official slid a photo across the table, thermal satellite imagery of the Atacama Desert. At its center, a circular anomaly, glowing faintly beneath the sand. Hale's eyes met his. "Whatever that thing is, it's moving." That night, alone in his quarters, Ethan studied the image again. Same shape, same geometry. Another gate. The disk he'd used was gone, but the hum had returned, faint, rhythmic, like distant thunder inside his skull. He turned off the lights. The hum continued. Then, from the darkness, a voice whispered, "Not Aileron, not human, something in between. You closed one memory. Others remain." He stared at his reflection in the window. For a heartbeat, his eyes glowed faintly with that same cold light from beneath the ice. He whispered to the empty room, "Then I guess the descent never ends." Fade out. Low rumble under the final line, trailing into silence. If you've been holding your breath through this part of the story, don't stop now. The next chapter goes deeper, where the truth about what's moving beneath our continents finally surfaces. Subscribe, stay close, and be ready for Part 3, The Awakening. Part number 2, The Awakening. The Atacama sun felt like an open furnace. Ethan stepped out of the transport helicopter, the dry air hitting him like a wall. The plateau stretched endlessly, ripples of red-gold sand fading into distant mountains. It was hard to believe that under this lifeless desert, something moved. Colonel Nakamura was already on site, standing beside a row of prefabricated shelters that shimmered in the heat. Her eyes, hidden behind dark lenses, followed Ethan's approach. "Welcome back to nowhere," she said. He gave a humorless smile. "I thought I'd left nowhere in Antarctica. Not this kind." She handed him a data tablet. "Thermal scans. 2 days ago, the anomaly began shifting east. Whatever it is, it's not stationary." Ethan scrolled through the readings. The images showed a circular heat bloom, almost identical to the Antarctic gate, but this one was alive, its temperature rising and falling rhythmically like a heartbeat. "Has anyone gone down there yet?" he asked. Nakamura shook her head. "Command's keeping this one quiet. No full team, just us, 2 geologists, and a containment unit. They want you to interpret the signal. Ethan looked up from the screen. Because I've heard it before. Exactly. He exhaled slowly, already feeling the hum starting again behind his temples. It had never truly left him. It only waited. And now, under this desert sky, it was growing louder. That night, as the sun bled out over the horizon, the camp settled into uneasy silence. The equipment buzzed faintly. The only other sounds were wind and sand rasping against metal. Ethan lay awake in his tent, listening to the hum grow sharper, forming into faint syllables he couldn't understand. He rose quietly, stepping outside. The air was cold now. The kind of dry cold that scraped your lungs. He followed the direction of the vibration, down a ridge toward a field of ancient stone carvings half buried in dust, spirals, hands, geometric shapes, petroglyphs thousands of years old. As he traced one with his fingers, the sand beneath his boots trembled. A low resonance spread through the ground, accompanied by a faint blue glow seeping from the cracks. Ethan, he turned sharply. Dr. Lena Armitage stood at the ridge above him, wrapped in a scarf against the wind. "I thought you were still in Geneva," he said. "I was," she replied. "Until they called me back." She climbed down, kneeling beside him. "You shouldn't be near the carvings. They're reacting," he said quietly. Just like in Antarctica, Lena touched one of the symbols. It was warm. These markings predate human civilization by millennia. The locals call this place La Puerta de los Dioses, the Gate of the Gods. Ethan's stomach tightened. Then it's another portal. Or a transmitter, she said. Whatever's beneath the surface, it's not waiting anymore. The next morning, Director Hale arrived with a small convoy of black vehicles. He wore a suit even in the desert, a man pretending control in a place that rejected it. "Dr. Armitage," he greeted, offering a curt nod. "Captain Cole, I trust you're both ready to make history again." Ethan's jaw clenched. Last time we made history, Hale's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's why this time, we're prepared." He gestured toward a large shipping container being unloaded by the containment unit. The crate's sides were stamped with warnings in 5 languages. Inside, wrapped in metallic insulation, was a sphere the size of a basketball black, covered in the same glowing sigils as the Antarctic gate. Ethan stepped closer. "Where did you get that?" "Recovered from ice core fragments near the original site," Hale said. "It's inert. We believe it's a power relay, maybe even a communication node, or a beacon," Lena murmured. Hale ignored her. "You'll activate it at 2,200 hours. Full recording, remote monitoring. If this thing is a key, we'll see where it leads." Nakamura crossed her arms. "And if it opens something again, then you'll close it." Hale turned, already walking away. "We have to know what's beneath us." At 2,159, the camp lights dimmed. The desert had gone utterly silent. No wind, no insects, not even static in the comms. The containment team stood in a semicircle around the sphere, each soldier tense, weapons lowered but ready. Ethan placed his hand on the device. It was colder than the air. The hum in his head aligned perfectly with the faint vibration under his palm. He glanced at Lena. "Ready," she whispered. He nodded. "Here goes nothing." He pressed the activation sequence. The sphere pulsed once, then again, the sigils brightening until the whole camp was bathed in blue light. Instruments screamed with data overload. The desert floor shook, sand rippling like water. Then came the sound, a deep, resonant tone that rose through frequencies too low for hearing, too high for comfort. People clutched their ears, though no air vibrated. The sphere cracked open like an egg, revealing a core of swirling white mist. Through that mist, something moved. A shadow, tall and human-shaped, but wrong in proportion, arms too long, head too smooth. It stepped forward until its outline was clear, and the lights of the camp flickered as if refusing to illuminate it. The soldiers froze. Nakamura whispered, Contact unknown entity. Hale's voice came through the comm channel, steady but strained. Do not engage. Record everything. The figure tilted its head toward Ethan. You carry the echo, it said in a voice like breaking ice. Why did you wake the sleepers? Ethan forced himself to stand. We didn't know what you wanted. The figure's eyes glowed faintly. We wanted to be forgotten. The ground split open behind it. From the fissure rose a column of pale light, twisting skyward like a tornado made of glass. The entity turned toward it. The others are listening now. You have no more time. It stepped backward into the light and vanished. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the seismic alarms blared. Underground displacement, a geologist shouted. Depth increasing 3 kilometers and rising fast. Hale's voice crackled. Contain the site. I repeat. Contain. A thunderous crack cut him off. The fissure erupted, throwing debris and sand in every direction. Ethan grabbed Lena, diving behind a vehicle as a shockwave hit. The air shimmered with heat and sound, then silence again. When they looked up, the sphere was gone. In its place stood a circular depression 10 meters wide, glowing faintly from within. A tunnel. Leading down, Nakamura wiped blood from her temple. Please, tell me we're sealing that up. Ethan shook his head, staring into the light. It's not just opening gates anymore. It's rising. They descended at dawn, against Nakamura's protests. The tunnel was lined with smooth stone that glowed faintly, the same alien craftsmanship they'd seen beneath the Antarctic ice. But this felt newer, alive. Lena ran her scanner along the wall. This material's self-healing. The deeper we go, the warmer it gets. At 200 meters, they found the first chamber, circular, with 7 pillars surrounding a central platform. Each pillar pulsed faintly, projecting holographic images into the air maps of Earth. But different. The continents were unrecognizable, shifted into ancient configurations. Ethan stepped forward, brushing dust from one projection. This isn't our planet as it is, it's as it was. Lena nodded slowly. 12,000 years ago, during the last glacial maximum. The realization hit both of them at once. These structures aren't alien, Ethan whispered. They're human. Or, they were. Nakamura frowned. You're telling me an ancient civilization built all this, then vanished? Not vanished, Lena said. Went underground. Before anyone could respond, a low vibration filled the room. The pillars flickered, and one of the holograms zoomed in automatically onto Antarctica. A single red point pulsed beneath the ice. Ethan recognized the pattern instantly. That's the gate we closed. Correction, Lena murmured, watching the red pulse multiply across the map. That's one of them. More dots appeared: South America, Africa, Asia, even beneath the Pacific, each one beating in rhythm, like hearts under the earth. Oh my God, Nakamura whispered. They're all waking up. Hours later, the team gathered at the surface. Hale's voice barked through the comm network. Urgent. Cole, report status. We're seeing global anomalies, magnetic spikes, seismic waves across 6 continents. What did you find? Ethan stared at the glowing horizon. We didn't find them, Director. They found us. That night, the stars over the Atacama flickered as if through water. Ethan stood alone at the edge of the crater, feeling the hum now not just in his head, but in the ground itself. Every heartbeat matched it. Every breath aligned with it. Lena approached quietly. You're hearing it again, aren't you? He nodded. It's not just a signal anymore. It's synchronization. What does that mean? He turned to her, eyes reflecting the faint blue light from below. It means we're becoming part of whatever it is. Thunder rolled in the distance, impossible thunder, because there were no clouds. The earth itself seemed to shudder, and somewhere deep beneath them, something vast stirred. Ethan looked toward the horizon where the Andes cut a jagged silhouette against the stars. This isn't the awakening of an ancient civilization, he said softly. It's the planet remembering who it used to be, and in the dark below, in chambers older than recorded time, thousands of eyes opened, blue, luminous, and human. They looked upward, toward the sound of the living world above, and began to rise. Part IV. The Reckoning. The first tremor hit at 03, 11 amperes. M. Not a quake, a pulse. The instruments didn't measure it as seismic movement, but as an electromagnetic surge that spread through every communication network simultaneously. Screens flashed, satellites flickered, and digital clocks froze at the same second across 3 continents. At the Atacama outpost, alarms screamed awake. Ethan and Lena stumbled from their tents as a column of blue light erupted from the crater, spiraling upward until it pierced the stars. Around it, the air distorted like heat over metal. Colonel Nakamura's voice snapped through the comms. "All personnel to emergency positions! We've got a full breach!" The light grew brighter, and within it, shapes began to form silhouettes, tall and graceful, stepping out of the impossible glow. They didn't walk so much as glide, their feet never quite touching the ground. The same elongated forms Ethan had seen in Antarctica. But now, they were clearer, solid, radiant with a quiet, alien grace. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the hum in Ethan's skull became words again. "You were warned." He staggered, pressing his palms to his temples. Lena grabbed him, her face pale in the light. "Ethan, talk to me. They're speaking inside my head. Then listen," she whispered, "and tell me what they want." The shapes advanced until they stood at the edge of the crater. One, taller than the rest, extended an arm. The gesture wasn't hostile. It was solemn, almost human. Ethan stepped forward despite Nakamura's warning shout. The air shimmered between them, forming a holographic image. A map of the Earth, overlaid with glowing veins that pulsed like blood vessels. From each node, faint streams of light spread outward the gates. "The balance is broken," the voice said within him. "You woke the circuits before the time. The planet is remembering faster than it can endure." Ethan's throat tightened. "You're causing the quakes, the signals, all of it. We are not causing, we are returning." The figure turned its gaze toward the horizon, where dawn was just beginning to bleed across the desert. "When the ice melted, you inherited the world, but the foundation beneath it was never yours." The light flickered, and the vision changed. Cities appeared, glowing with energy, surrounded by oceans of crystal towers and domes. Then a flash blinding white, and everything shattered into dust and ice. Lena stared, transfixed. "It's memory. They're showing us their extinction." The image faded. Ethan swallowed hard. "What do you want from us now? To survive? Together, or not at all?" By morning, the global networks were collapsing. Hale's command plane circled above Chile, relaying garbled updates. Magnetic storms disrupted navigation systems. Entire power grids went offline. From orbit, satellites recorded massive energy flares beneath tectonic plates, as if something inside the Earth were breathing. In the control cabin, Hale's voice was strained. "Every gate's active. We're getting visual disturbances from Greenland, Siberia, the Indian Ocean. These things are everywhere." Nakamura's reply crackled through static. "We can't contain this, sir. If we start shooting, we'll trigger God knows what." "Then we adapt," Hale said. "Cole and Armitage have contact. They're our bridge. Keep them alive." At the outpost, Ethan and Lena worked feverishly through the data the entities had left in their systems. The symbols, once indecipherable, now rearranged themselves into patterns that made sense to Ethan's mind, as if his brain had been reprogrammed. "It's not a language," he said. "It's code. Biological encryption. They're rewriting Earth's biosphere." Lena frowned. "Rewriting? How?" He pointed to the data streams. "Look, microelectromagnetic fields. They're interacting with DNA, not just human, all living organisms. They're synchronizing life." Her voice dropped. "That sounds like evolution at gunpoint." Before Ethan could respond, a sharp whine cut through the air drones. He rushed outside, just as military transports descended in a storm of dust. Director Hale stepped out, flanked by soldiers in desert camouflage. "Pack it up," Hale ordered. "We're moving to Phase 3. Ethan glared. "You mean weaponization? Containment," Hale corrected. "We can't risk global contamination until we understand their intent." "They've already told us," Lena snapped. They're not invading, they're restoring. This planet was theirs long before ours. Hale turned on her, eyes cold. Doctor, I don't answer to theology. I answer to survival. By evening, the military had secured the site. The entities had withdrawn into the crater, leaving behind only the rhythmic hum that never stopped. Hale's team erected jammers and energy dampeners, but the readings only intensified. Ethan stood at the crater's edge, staring into the faint light below. Nakamura joined him, her voice low. He's going to try to nuke it. He can't, Ethan said. That'll trigger every gate across the planet. That's the point, she replied grimly. If we can't control it, they'll destroy it. Ethan looked at her sharply. You'll go along with that? She hesitated. I follow orders, but I've also seen what's down there. It's not just technology, it's consciousness. He nodded slowly. Then help me stop him. That night, while the soldiers slept in shifts, Ethan slipped into the command tent. Hale's secure terminal glowed faintly in the dark, displaying authorization codes for the strike sequence. Project Thanatos. Global Purge Protocol. He copied the data onto a drive and headed for the communications tower. Lena was waiting with a satellite uplink. Once we broadcast this, she said, every nation will see it proof of what's really happening. Then maybe they'll hesitate before pulling the trigger. She nodded, pressing the transmit key. The signal pulsed outward into the dark. For a moment, it felt like victory. Then the lights went out. The hum rose deafening now, and every piece of technology in the camp exploded with a burst of static. The sand lifted, swirling around them in a spiral of blue light. Through the storm, figures emerged again, the same radiant forms, dozens of them, surrounding the camp. The soldiers opened fire instinctively. Bullets passed through the beings like smoke. One soldier screamed as his rifle melted into dust. Hale stumbled out of his tent, shouting into a dead radio. Cease fire. Hold your positions. The central figure approached him. Your weapons are memories of fear, it said. They have no power here. Hale raised his sidearm anyway. Stay back. Ethan lunged forward. Don't, but the gun discharged. The bullet hit the entity's chest and vanished in a flash of light. For a fraction of a second, the air rippled with force. When it cleared, Hale was on the ground, gasping. The weapon fused into his hand. The entity regarded him with something like pity. Violence is your first language. You will forget it soon. And then they were gone again, leaving only Hale's screams echoing in the desert night. By dawn, the world had changed. News broadcasts, those still working, reported strange phenomena. Forests growing overnight. Coral blooming in toxic waters. Extinct species sighted alive, but also chaos, power failures, satellites falling from orbit, nations accusing each other of attack. In Geneva, the United Nations emergency session dissolved into panic. Every delegate's microphone failed as a low hum filled the chamber. Then, a single voice spoke through every speaker on Earth, calm and resonant. We are the architects. The time of division is over. The cycle renews. Every clock in the world reset to zero. At the Atacama site, Ethan watched the sunrise with Lena and Nakamura. The desert shimmered with faint blue veins beneath the sand, spreading outward like roots. It's starting, Lena whispered. Can we stop it? Nakamura asked. Ethan shook his head slowly. Maybe we're not supposed to. Maybe this was always the next step. Hale lay unconscious under medical supervision, his arm encased in translucent crystal. His vitals were stable, but his brain activity had changed, synchronized to the same frequency as the hum. He's part of it now, Lena said quietly. Ethan looked toward the horizon, where the first city shimmered faintly in the heat structures rising from the earth, built of the same material as the ancient gates. Humanity's future, or its replacement, was taking shape before their eyes. We unleashed something older than civilization, he said. Now it's deciding whether we deserve to stay. That night, Ethan dreamed. He stood in the frozen caverns of Antarctica again, before the sealed gate. But now it was open, and beyond it lay not darkness, but a mirror of earth green, luminous, alive. A voice whispered in his ear, "The reckoning is not punishment. It is remembering." He reached toward the light and woke to the sound of the hum stronger than ever. Outside his tent, the desert glowed as far as the eye could see. Above, the stars flickered in synchrony with the rhythm below. The world itself was breathing. Part V. The new dawn. The hum never stopped. 3 days after the desert erupted with light, the entire planet was vibrating with that same, low frequency, faint, but omnipresent, like the sound of the world remembering its own heartbeat. Satellites that hadn't fallen from orbit recorded rings of energy expanding from multiple sites: Antarctica, Atacama, Himalayas, and beneath the Pacific Ocean. Each pulse brought new transformations: rivers clearing overnight, auroras visible even over the equator, crops growing in barren soil. But it also brought fear. Civilization was unraveling. Power grids remained unstable, cities were plunged into intermittent darkness, and communication networks distorted with whispers that no system could explain. Governments called it global geomagnetic interference. The people called it the Second Genesis. At the Atacama outpost, now an improvised command base, Ethan Cole stood in the shadow of a new structure that had risen overnight, a tower of translucent material growing straight from the ground like crystal. Inside it, faint silhouettes moved, their forms human and not. "They're building cities," he said quietly. Lena stood beside him, arms folded against the cold morning wind. "Not for us. For them." Colonel Nakamura joined them, her uniform dusty, her voice weary. "Commands lost control. The United Nations declared global emergency at dawn. Half the world's leaders have gone off-grid. The rest are asking what we're supposed to do if these things decide to finish what they started." Ethan watched the crystal tower pulse gently, in time with the heartbeat of the earth. "I don't think they're here to finish anything. I think they're here to merge." Lena glanced at him sharply. "Merge?" He turned to her, eyes shadowed. "Think about it. Every anomaly, every signal, every adaptation, it's integration. They're rewriting us. Maybe not physically, but mentally. A convergence of consciousness." Nakamura exhaled through her teeth. "You're saying they're evolving us?" "I'm saying," Ethan replied, "they're deciding who gets to be part of the future." That night, Hale awoke for the first time since his collapse. He sat in the medical tent, pale but alert, his right arm encased in shimmering crystal that pulsed faintly like living skin. When Ethan entered, Hale's eyes opened, glowing faint blue for just a moment. "You were right," Hale said softly. "They were never invading. We were." Ethan pulled up a chair. "How much do you remember?" "Enough to know we can't fight them." Hale's voice trembled, not from fear but awe. "When the entity touched me, I saw everything. The old world, the fall, the sleep, and the promise. They're not gods, Ethan. They're what humanity becomes when it stops destroying itself." Ethan leaned forward. "Then why the secrecy? Why not show everyone what they are?" "Because we're not ready to see ourselves." Hale looked toward the crystal tower outside the tent. "They told me the merging will begin soon. The ones who can hear the hum, they'll adapt. The rest what? They'll fade." By morning, the first phase of the merging began. It wasn't sudden. It started with light. Pale blue veins appeared beneath people's skin, faint as moonlight, glowing stronger when they were near the crystal structures. At first, the effect seemed harmless, even beautiful. But as hours passed, symptoms followed: altered voices, heightened perception, shared dreams. Dr. Armitage recorded everything. "Their neural patterns are synchronizing," she explained to Nakamura. "They're connecting through some form of quantum resonance. It's not infection, it's communication." And if we don't want to communicate?" Nakamura asked. Lena hesitated. "Then the signal won't sustain you. The body begins to reject itself." Ethan stared at her. "You're saying non-adapters die." "I'm saying," she said quietly, "the Earth is choosing." By the second day, the Atacama base was surrounded by light. The ground glowed underfoot, and from the mountains, other towers had begun to rise, each aligned perfectly with the stars above, forming constellations mirrored on Earth. Lena ran simulations. "They're constructing an array," she said, "not random planetary scale. It's like an antenna." Ethan frowned. "To contact someone? Or something," she said. "Maybe whatever gave them this technology in the first place." The thought chilled him. The architects. At the mention of the word, The hum-shifted tone deepened, almost responding. The entire base shook. In the crystal tower, the shadows moved again, not randomly this time, but rhythmically, like heartbeats syncing across an invisible network. Then, from inside the tower, a new light appeared. Not blue, but gold. A human silhouette stepped forward, unmistakably female. Lena gasped. "Ethan?" "That's Isla." He froze. "That's impossible. She died in Antarctica, but it was her." Isla Grant alive. Radiant. Her eyes filled with the same light that flowed through the tower. Her voice echoed softly through the air. "You closed one gate, Ethan, but you were never meant to stop us. You were meant to lead us." He stepped toward her, trembling. "What are you? What we all will be. The memory of what we once were, becoming what we were meant to become." The ground rippled with light. Behind Isla, other figures appeared. The missing expedition members, the scientists, even soldiers who'd vanished during the earlier awakenings. Each glowed faintly, neither dead nor living. "Join us," Isla said gently. "It's not the end, it's evolution." Ethan reached out, but Lena grabbed his wrist. "Ethan, stop. You touch that and you'll never come back." He hesitated, torn between reason and the impossible pull in his chest. The hum rose, filling his body, his bones. For a moment, he saw it, the connection. Billions of minds linking into one consciousness spanning the planet. No more war, no more greed, no more loneliness. But also, no individuality, no freedom. He pulled back. "Not like this." Isla's expression softened. "You can't stop it, Ethan. It's already begun." The light faded, and she vanished. The tower went dark. That night, the sky changed. The auroras brightened until they covered every horizon. The constellations rearranged themselves, forming patterns that matched the crystalline towers. Around the world, reports flooded in. People hearing voices, entire populations glowing faintly under the light. Oceans turning luminous. In Geneva, the remaining governments met in secret bunkers, arguing about countermeasures, though none of their weapons functioned anymore. The hum had corrupted every electrical circuit on Earth. In Atacama, Ethan and Lena stared at the latest data. "It's accelerating," she whispered. Within 48 hours, full synchronization. Nakamura loaded her sidearm, though it was more a ritual than readiness. "And if we resist?" Lena looked at her helplessly. "Then we'll be the last humans." Ethan stared at the crystal tower. "Not if we give them something else to merge with." "What do you mean?" He pulled up a schematic from his earlier research, the communication disk from Antarctica. "These towers are amplifiers. They respond to input. If we can alter the frequency, even slightly, we might separate their signal from ours. Keep both systems alive." Dual consciousness, Lena realized. Human and Aileran. "It's a long shot," Ethan said, "but it's all we've got." They worked through the night, converting Hale's equipment into a resonator. He watched them silently from his cot, his crystal arm now glowing in harmony with the tower outside. "You won't stop it," he said softly. "It's too vast." Ethan looked up. "Maybe not. But maybe we can negotiate." Hale smiled faintly. "Then you'll need to speak their language." He lifted his hand, placing it on Ethan's chest. For a moment, light passed between them. Ethan gasped, and in that instant, he saw it. The network. The consciousness stretching across the earth, and within it, something deeper, a presence older than any civilization, watching, waiting. The architects, their voice filled his mind. Balance must return. The surface has forgotten. The memory must be whole again. Ethan forced the thought back. "We can coexist. You don't have to erase us. We do not erase. We transform." "Then transform with us." Silence. Then a pulse of light. Agreement or challenge? He couldn't tell. At dawn, they activated the resonator. The device pulsed with alternating frequencies, one matching the aileron hum, the other slightly out of phase. The result was interference not destructive, but creative. Two waves merging to form a third. The ground shook violently. The crystal towers flared brighter than ever, casting golden light across the desert. The hum split into two harmonics, one deep and ancient, the other fragile and human. Lena gripped Ethan's hand. "It's working!" But then the sky cracked open. A beam of energy descended from orbit, not from a satellite, but from space itself. The architects had arrived. Massive shapes emerged from the clouds, translucent vessels, each a city of light descending through the atmosphere. Ethan stared upward, awe and terror mixing in his chest. They're coming home. The ships aligned with the towers, forming a global network of light. Energy surged through every connection, feeding into the resonator. The signal grew unbearable. The Earth seemed to split between two realities. In one, the world burned in purification. In the other, it flourished in harmony. Ethan shouted over the roar. "Lena, hold the frequency steady." "I can't. It's overloading." "Then let it." He reached for the controls and forced the output to maximum. A wave of light exploded outward, engulfing everything. Silence. When the light faded, Ethan found himself standing in a vast field of glass and grass. The sky shimmered with auroras, though it was daylight. All around him, the towers stood silent, dormant. The hum was gone. Lena was beside him, alive, her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, look." On the horizon, a city rose not of crystal or steel, but both. Human architecture blended seamlessly with alien design. People walked its streets, some ordinary, some radiant, all coexisting. The integration had succeeded, not total assimilation, not total resistance, a new balance. Nakamura approached, her uniform torn, but she was smiling faintly. "So, did we win?" Ethan looked toward the horizon, where the last of the golden ships rose into the sky, vanishing beyond the clouds. "I don't think this was about winning," he said softly. "I think this was about surviving ourselves." Weeks later, the world called it the renewal. Technology and biology fused. Diseases vanished. War stopped not from law, but from shared understanding. Those who resisted the transformation vanished quietly, their memories fading like dreams. Humanity had changed, not conquered, but evolved. Ethan lived in the new capital that rose over the ruins of Santiago. At night, he still heard faint echoes of the hum, not as warning, but as song. Lena often joined him on the balcony overlooking the luminous city. "Do you ever wonder what's next?" she asked one evening. He smiled. "Always." "Do you think the architects will come back?" He looked up at the stars, where faint patterns glowed in the void. They never left, and far beneath the earth, in the silent chambers of the old world, the last dormant gate flickered once, a single blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. Then a voice whispered through the stillness. "Cycle complete. Await next dawn. Fade out. End of the new dawn."